now is my good friend of Rebel News and of Taxpayers Everywhere, Kris Sims. She's the Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and we've got a ton to talk about. But before we do, last night, surprise upset if you were watching the pollsters, and I was kind of surprised. We did a live stream last night, and I started off saying, like the polls say the Liberals are going to win, and no surprise, it's Newfoundland and Labrador. But then, 3 hours into what was supposed to be a 90-minute live stream, things have switched, and all of a sudden, Tony Wakeham is the new progressive conservative premier in Newfoundland and Labrador. I was surprised, but I am also delighted, and I think you are too.
Yeah, it was really nice to hear, especially because he was running on a pro-oil and gas platform. And the reason that we're happy to hear things like that is because that is what brings in private investment into Canada, and it lessens the burden on the backs of taxpayers. As we've pointed out before, we've lost out on billions with a B dollars by not having proper pipeline capacity here in Canada. And that's just from the income taxes federally that we've lost out on by not having those pipelines up and running because of the jobs that are created from those things. And so, yeah, based on what I've seen of that platform, that was really nice to see. So I think, Sheila, the shine of the fancy words and the slogans and all of the glossy nonsense, I think that's wearing off.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, working people, like the families you and I both grew up in, we need money. We need good jobs. We need solid industries that have our backs that we can always go work in. And we can't pay the mortgage on good intention and promises of battery plants someday. So maybe this is an indicator of people getting more real over this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I read the PC platform sort of in the lead up to the election, and it's pro-oil and gas, it's pro-small business, pro-private sector, lower taxes, and they really want to take a bite out of that highest unemployment rate in the entire country at 9.9%. That is a devastating unemployment rate. And, the solution to that really is offshore oil and gas development.
Yep, big time. I'll take an extra little bit of hope out of this too, is that the previous, now the outgoing government, the Liberals, provincial Liberals who were there, credit where it's due, they had reduced gas taxes, and they were one of the instrumental voices holding Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to account for his stupid carbon taxes. So when they all of a sudden had to start paying the full freight of carbon taxes in all of Atlantic Canada, so not just Newfoundland and Labrador, there is a distinction between Atlantic Canada includes Newfoundland and Labrador. The Maritimes are just the lower provinces, the further south provinces. But again, credit where it's due. They did take Trudeau to task more so than I thought any other provincial Liberal Party would do. So I'm taking this as an indication that the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, they reflected that in that current government then, and now they want more of that.
Right.
More putting the boots to the federal government. More saying, no, we need actual action. We need resource jobs. We need pipelines. We need private investment coming up here to Canada. So I'm taking this as a good sign.
Yeah, we noted that when we were talking about it last night. It feels as though the Liberals in the Atlantic provinces, like the provincial Liberals and even the federal Liberals in the Atlantic provinces, they're a little bit removed from the hive mind of Ottawa, and they have to be more in touch with the local people. And a lot of the opposition to the federal carbon tax actually came from those Liberals who were worried about losing their seat. And the Liberals had to capitulate because they actually stand to lose something there, whereas they don't actually stand to lose anything in Western Canada. We don't generally vote Liberal out here.
There's one seat left in the movie theater. It's in the front row. You have a bad neck. This is what we call a last resort. If your most recent electricity bill says the rate of last resort, then your rate is like the front row seat in the movie theater. It will serve its purpose, but there are likely better options available.
Can I
Go
nerd
ahead,
out on
jump in.
that for just a second?
Definitely.
So I've got family back there. I lived back there, and so there's a different culture in the Maritimes and in Atlantic Canada. So I don't have family in Newfoundland and Labrador. I guess I do for married in, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I have family all through that region, and own a house there. I get it to a large extent. I'll put it this way: when I go back and visit, they don't say I'm from away.
Right. Okay.
Because,
got it.
right, of the family connection. So there, generally speaking, is a difference politically there. So not everybody, but generally speaking as the culture. In the Maritimes, you're often kind of born into a party.
Sure.
So I know my Nana, God rest her soul, she was definitely this way, and she was part of the silent generation. In the same way that you're either born Catholic or Protestant, you're born a Liberal or a Tory, and that's just how things are. And you have the portrait of your favorite prime minister next to your bowl of teaspoons, right there on the dining room table, and it's an ingrained part of their culture of red team, blue team, liberal, conservative, and they're very active in it, and they're more, I would say, more comfortable in their own skin within that party. So it's part of their life. Here in the West, which I am from, we can start a political party in like an afternoon.
Right.
There's a prairie fire. It's all populist based. I love it. That's my cup of tea because it affects real change, in my opinion, and it holds government to real account. That is my bag. But in the Maritimes, this is what's interesting, and this is why I think this whole thing started in the Maritimes of the pushback against the carbon tax that actually had some teeth to it. Because those constituents from within those Liberal members of Parliament ridings had the confidence to say, hey, Mike, I have to fill up my oil tank this winter.
Exactly.
What is going on? I'm not going to be coming out to your box social or your strawberry picnic or anything anymore. What's going on? I'm going to tell your mother about this. I'm not joking. It becomes that integrated into their culture. And so I would argue that gave those members of Parliament the confidence to stand up to the movie star thing that Trudeau had going on and look at him in the eye and say, I don't care what kind of socks you're wearing or how much these people from Toronto and Ottawa like you. I care about Margaret down the street in my riding, and you better scrap this thing right now. That's what happened. And so to your point here, I guess I'd have to really give it some thought as to how they switched now from Liberal, which was still holding Trudeau to account, which is a very Atlantic Canadian thing, to blue, to conservative. We'll have to see what happens there. But anyway, sorry to nerd out on that.
No, I like that. Because there's something to be said for small town social pressure. It's a course correction in and of itself. And I should note that the pressure that came from the Liberals, but also the Conservatives in the East, resulted in that carve-out of home heating oil from the carbon tax. And that carve-out and the hypocrisy of awarding that carve-out to, if you care about these things, and I actually don't, the dirtiest form of home heating from the carbon tax, it caused a knock-on effect where Scott Moe was like, oh yeah? Well, then you're not getting any carbon tax from our Crown Corporation that provides the home heating and electricity around these parts. So it caused a knock-on effect. That hypocritical carve-out that the Liberals pressured their own party to give out there caused a knock-on effect that I think turned into a snowball that made it impossible for the Liberals to keep the consumer carbon tax.
Amen. And actually, shameless plug, Franco points all that out in his book. He points all that out in his book. I actually saw this in the background of one of the Plebs interviews the other day. So thanks for that, I guess. That's cool. I guess I should step it up. I don't even have it here. What a bad friend.
Neither do I.
I should put that in mind. But to your point, that was to use a different metaphor, that was the crack in the dam. Yeah. Absolutely it was. Yeah. Because remember how rushed that looked. Remember that weird press conference where they announced the carve out for the home heating fuel. And that was exactly because of that scenario I just relayed. Yes. And it's a true scenario. Come the fall, people are getting their furnace oil filled, and all of a sudden they're looking at an extra $250 tax tacked onto that. And quite often these folks are seniors, they're on a fixed income, they can't afford that.
Yeah.
So they rightly raised bloody hell with their MP, and then the MPs turned around and filled Trudeau's ear, and Trudeau panicked and did a carve out for the highest emission fuel that you're using.
Bunker
like
fuel.
Compared to natural, like you're just burning oil in a furnace.
Right.
It's a lot higher emission. If, like you said, that's your concern, it's way higher emission than natural gas. But they get this carve out. Interestingly, Stéphane Guilbeault was not there. He did not come to that press conference. He was not part of that announcement. And that was the crack in the dam that finally got rid of the consumer carbon tax. And it is gone. I know a lot of people ask me, is it just reduced to zero? It was reduced to zero, but it is now gone. The mechanism is currently gone. But we're in the middle of the lull. It's that phony war right now, where they're cooking up the bigger, badder, more hidden industrial carbon tax. But right now, gas was $1.13 here a liter over the weekend. I was thrilled to see it.
I paid $1.12 a couple days ago.
Great. That's 20
excellent.
cents cheaper than it would be. It's great.
Yes.
And it's because the carbon tax is gone. So good on everybody for yelling at the government loud and clear enough. And I'm going to take this as an indication that people are still yelling at the government in Newfoundland and Labrador, and they want more change that will result in more wealth for Canada and lower taxes.
Yeah. Well, and, Newfoundland being a resource-rich place, what's good for Newfoundland is good for the rest of this country, in much the same way that what's good for Alberta is good for the rest of the country.